Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from Breitbart. This is dated January 22nd, and it is entitled Shocking. Freed Israeli hostages say Hamas used UN facilities to hide them, which always begs the question, why are we funding the UN if this sort of thing is going to happen? Obviously the UN is on the side of the bad guys in this case, and frankly I think we should defund the UN anyway. But let's go ahead and see what this is saying. So as I'm recording this, I think the night before this recording is when some of the Israeli hostages were released. 4 young girls finally made it home. So, the ceasefire agreement is in place right now, but let's go through this article. It says, outrage is intensifying after Israeli hostages recently freed from Gaza revealed that they were held in UN facilities during their captivity, with critics calling the UNRWA, that's the UN, they're the bad guys. I can't remember what it stands for exactly. Oh, where is it? Yeah, the United Nations, here it is, Relief and Works Agency, a front for Hamas that must be disbanded immediately, which is correct. And I should have also said at the beginning as well that what's it called? Those hostages that were released, the 4 girls. This article was printed before that, so there are a few hostages. I think it was 3 hostages released before that. Oh, here it is. It says right here. It says 3 Israeli women last weekend. Romy Godin, Emily Demary, and Doran Steinbrecher were released in a high-stakes prisoner swap, which saw Israel free 90 Palestinian detainees, including convicted terrorists. All right, so there you go. Just so you know, this is about the last group that was released, not the 4 girls from just recently. It says the women, who endured nearly a year and a half of harrowing captivity under the terrorist group Hamas, described being detained in United Nations facilities, including tent camps and humanitarian zones administered by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East. That's a hell of a title, but the UNRWA just stands for Relief and Works Agency, as you can see. So it says Israelis Channel 13 News reports. An embedded tweet here says that the hostages were held by Hamas terrorists in United Nations shelters in Gaza, facilities intended for civilian use, because that's what the Hamas does, is that they use civilian infrastructure to hide what they're doing, okay? Which is a lot of that is, if they're using it for, purposes of war, I believe that's actually a war crime. It says, additionally, reports indicate that they were held at the Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. Sorry, I feel like hiccups are coming on. Anyway, so the former hostages are now undergoing rehabilitation following severe conditions that included long periods in underground confinement without sunlight. One woman recounted being subjected to a medical procedure without anesthesia, underscoring the inhumane treatment they faced. And that seems to be a common thing that some of these returned hostages are saying, is that they were operated on without anesthesia. So, again, if you're cheering for Hamas, you are not cheering for the good guys. It says, we need to confirm at least Stefanik as UN ambassador ASAP and hold the UN accountable for this. It's despicable that the UN has still not condemned Hamas terrorists for holding 3 women hostages in UN shelters for civilians in Gaza, wrote Republican Senator Rick Scott of Florida. If the UN prefers to work closely with terrorists instead of working with the United States and Israel to get our hostages home, they don't deserve a single cent of our taxpayer dollars, he added. It's been 474 days. Bring them all home. And he's 100% right about that. If you're doing things that are blatantly against what we stand for, then why are we giving you money? It doesn't make any sense. So that is his embedded tweet. Let's scroll down. So he says, or someone else says, how do we know it was UNRWA? Because UNRWA told us. They boasted about it. UNRWA runs all UN shelters, wrote Hillel Neuer, executive director of UN Watch. And it says hostages were held in UNRWA compounds. 3 Israeli women held hostage by Hamas in Gaza for 471 days, reported they were held captive part of the time in UN shelters. And how do we know it? Because they told us, and that's basically what it says in the article. So this is his embedded tweet. And scrolling down, it says, we already knew that UNRWA employed Hamas terrorists, shared its infrastructure with Hamas, and allowed Hamas to use its facilities as bases of operations, wrote FDD's senior advisor Richard Goldberg. Now we learn it is also provided a safe haven for Hamas to hold hostages. So we need to stop thinking about UNRWA as merely a supporter of Hamas and start internalizing the extent to which the agency is a front for Hamas, he added. It says, activist and writer Hen Mazig, is it Mazig? I just pronounced it wrong. It says, a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute underscored failures of international organizations such as the UN, Red Cross, and Amnesty International, highlighting their silence on the hostage crisis and complicity in Hamas-linked activities. And I'm going to scroll past his embedded tweet here. Or no, that's actually, I thought this was going to be from him. So Hen Mazik wrote, so the Red Cross said, we won't condemn Hamas hiding behind neutrality. The UN silent about hostages being held in its own shelters. And UNRWA is more fierce about funding cuts and the fact that half its staff is tied to Hamas, with some showing some complicit in the October 7th massacre and hostage taking, so on and so forth. I'm not going to click on that, but you get the point. So next quote here, it says, this happened under your watch, Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General of the UN, for people that don't know. Says, you've said nothing or taken responsibility, just as you and Dr. Tedros stayed silent when a hostage revealed she was held captive in a hospital, wrote Moshe Emilio Lavi, whose brother-in-law is currently being held hostage in Gaza. As Hamas constantly weaponizes the UN and you enable it, you have failed us. And here's his embedded tweet, and he's not wrong. It says, don't act surprised. Hamas held our hostages in United Nations facilities in Gaza. The United Nations and the Hamas-run and infested UNRWA must be disbanded, but they won't, wrote filmmaker Avi Abelo. We are on our own. Not only do Western leaders not really care, they are complicit. Again, not wrong. It says, not to worry. We Jews have survived 3,000 years of exiles and persecutions, he added. We will overcome this generation of evil against us as well. And here's what he said here. It says the hostages were held in the United Nations UNRWA facilities. Trump is defending UNRWA. Trump is against terrorism. I hope this clears things up, wrote journalist Eve Barlow, and this is her embedded tweet. So scrolling down. It says UNRWA, created to aid Palestinian refugees after the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, launched by Arab nations aiming to annihilate the newly established State of Israel, now supports nearly 6 million people by redefining refugee status to include descendants, a move critics say deviates from global norms and perpetuates conflict. That's correct. As the matter comes as UNRWA facilities in Gaza, long accused of harboring Hamas operatives and enabling terror activities, faces heightened scrutiny as Israel moves to ban the agency over security concerns. And they, as far as I know, even though this article is just from a few days ago from the time of recording this, I believe they've actually kicked them out of Israel, at least. I mean, they don't have any, I don't think they can do anything about Gaza, but they did kick them out. They basically told them, you can't be here anymore in Israel, from what I know. Something to that effect. So it said, on Wednesday, President Trump's UN nominee, Elise Stefanik, denounced anti-Semitic rot in the global organization, which she described as a den of anti-Semitism, as she pledged reforms to protect U.S. interests during her Senate confirmation hearing. And says on Tuesday, President Trump halted UNRWA funding as part of his sweeping first-day actions, and he's been kicking ass so far, doing all the stuff that he's doing. But the UN needs to be defunded. Certainly, UNRWA should be just not. They shouldn't exist anymore. And I think it's pretty damning that all these hostages are coming back and saying, yeah, they were held in basically UN facilities. I think that's a problem. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.